A taxpayer-funded study out of Oregon suggests that the eviction moratorium should last forever. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have a great article for you today, and it's coming out of Portland, Oregon, of course. But before I get into that article, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below, and I'll keep working to bring you great articles about the eviction moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. So this article, it comes from thecentersquare.com, and it says, Oregon study proposes eviction moratorium last until the state helps all. So, like I said, when they say the state helps all, they really mean forever. It never will end. And I know that's what certain tenant advocates want. They believe that no one should ever be evicted for any reason, and that property owners should have essentially no rights to their own properties. And if you think of it, really think about what that's saying. That is a move towards a more socialist system of housing, okay? And that's really what I'm against. But let's get into this article, see what it says. A taxpayer-funded study from Portland State University suggests Oregon's potential wave of evictions should be put on indefinite hold because it could cost up to $4.7 billion. The study, released this month, projects the downstream costs of evictions using a cost of eviction calculator from the University of Arizona's College of Law. Its estimates are based on data collected from Oregon homeless shelters, inpatient and emergency medical services, and child welfare services, among others. It concludes evictions could cost taxpayers between $720 million and $4.7 billion. Okay, well, I don't like the way that they are saying that these evictions are, they could cost taxpayers a bunch of money. So their proposal instead is to prevent the evictions and then that same amount of money be charged to private individuals. Because, somebody still has to pay for these people's housing. Who do they think is, we don't want the taxpayers to pay for it. We want the landlords to pay for it instead. That's insane. Okay, it is the government's responsibility actually to take care of those in need and those who are homeless. Okay, it's not the responsibility of an individual such as myself, a small landlord, to house the homeless. Okay, that's completely ridiculous. If we want to be truly responsible, we should allow everyone to stay in their homes while we figure out how many still need rent assistance and whether they can access that assistance, said PSU Associate Professor Marissa Zapata. According to PSU researchers, this new study evaluated system costs for renters who had zero confidence in paying their next month's rent, a metric not included in the previous study from February. That prior study pegged the costs of mass evictions at $3.3 billion, and a total back rent could total up to $378 million. I always wonder when they do research like this, if they ever actually talk to any of the stakeholders other than the renters, okay? Like actually talk to a landlord when you're doing a study like this. Now, I know in their minds, they're like, all landlords are these greedy jerks who, live in their mansions and they don't care. They're just, using these tenants for money or whatever, right? Well, that's just not the case. Most landlords are small landlords who own one, maybe two properties, okay? And if they actually talk to us about what this eviction moratorium would do to them, then they would understand that, hey, there's more than one side of this story, and just stopping evictions isn't going to help anything. It's actually going to make things worse for a lot of tenants and a lot of landlords. But yeah, of course, they're never going to talk to the landlords because that would be, basically it would oppose their regular viewpoint. Okay, and they don't want to, get any differing viewpoints because that would throw their whole worldview into question, and that's just crazy. They're not very open-minded, in my opinion. Oregon's statewide eviction moratorium ended on Wednesday, leaving thousands of tenants liable for overdue rent under the threat of eviction, at least on paper. The Biden administration's extension of the federal eviction moratorium in June protected Oregonians from eviction notices through July 31st. The study authors wrote that their estimates do not account for other impacts of eviction, like pandemic eviction achievement gaps and lifetime earnings. In addition, their numbers do not take into account the existing state programs set up since 2020. So yeah, they're not even using all their own information. I mean, they didn't even look at all the additional programs that have been set up. And, it seems like a very lazy study to me. Okay, they're just kind of throwing numbers out there. And, the big problem I have with a lot of studies is that they're not reviewed by statisticians. They're not reviewed by, they're not peer reviewed. So you end up with people who composite a whole bunch of information. They just throw it out there and they're like, well, listen, it's gonna cost $20 billion if we do this. And I'm like, well, that's not the reality of the situation in a lot of cases. Okay. So yeah, put your study out there if you believe that it's true, and let other people critically evaluate it. Don't just take the word for it. And a lot of newspaper articles will just take the word of the study and believe it like it's the gospel truth. And it's just not the case. Violet Wilson, a landlord in Kaiser, says the longer the state outsources the costs to housing managers like herself, the more are doomed to leave the market. In June, she told lawmakers that one tenant of hers left without a forwarding address and owed $8,000 in back rent. Mainly, I manage single-family homes, and a number of my owners are selling because they cannot deal with uncertainty of Oregon landlord law, Wilson said. I have sent information to my tenants, letting them know of the resources over months. Often, it has taken multiple times for them to reach out for help. Yeah, that's the other issue, and I've gone over that many times as well. When you want rental assistance as a landlord, a lot of the times you have to have tenant cooperation in order to get that rental assistance, okay? And if the tenant isn't willing to cooperate, or if they leave, and don't give you a forwarding address like this lady said here, you could just be stuck in that debt, without $8,000 of the rent that you're owed. So what are you supposed to do? Okay, you're not a private detective going to go search this person down to get your money that you're owed, or to get them to apply for back rent. No, it's just gone. And if you own one house, that can ruin you right there. So yeah, a lot of landlords are going to be forced to sell. They're going to just get out of their landlord business altogether and just do something else. And in a hot market, and most of the country right now is hot markets, they're going to be selling their single family homes to private owners. Okay, they're not going to be rental properties anymore. So people will not be able to find a lot of single family rentals. The rental market will completely change as these things have pushed a lot of landlords out of the business. Estimates on many Oregon tenants are behind on rent is hard to calculate. On how many Oregon tenants are behind on rent are hard to calculate. This article is written terribly. The U.S. Census Bureau projected in May that at least 17% of tenants, or more than 101,700 people, were unsure about making rent. A survey from the Multifamily Northwest, a landlord association, estimated 13.2% of Oregon tenants missed a rent payment in the second week of May, down from 14.1% in April. Nationwide, most tenants are paying rent. A National Multifamily Housing Council report from May showed 94.6% of its 11.7 million tenants paid rent. I guess they're trying to say last month. So yeah, I mean, crazy stuff. They think that they shouldn't remove the eviction moratorium until everyone is helped. And as you and I both know, there's no way that everyone is going to be able to get help, okay? I mean, in terms of the tenants. Now, the landlords obviously all of them could easily be helped if it wasn't required that the tenant cooperate in order for the landlord to get that rental assistance. But that's not going to happen. They're not going to suddenly make it easy for a landlord to be able to do business. They hate landlords in some of these states, and Oregon is one of them. So, yeah, I really feel bad for the landlords up there. But yeah, don't just take this study, for what it is. They should really, get in there and dive into the details. And, in this eviction moratorium, it needs to end. Don't let landlords sit out there, providing free housing for people, because that's the government's job. That's not our job.